Hello YouTube, it is me again, back with another video, and this time I'm going to be drawing some of my retired characters. So I thought that I would tell you their little story, because this is actually a full-length story that I had for a long time, that I had started to write, and I wrote bits and pieces of it, but I could never make it work as one continuous piece. So when I got to high school, it just kind of fell to the wayside. But I was thinking about it recently, and I decided that it would be really fun to kind of draw these characters because of their very Victorian aesthetic that these characters have, because they are loosely placed in the Victorian era, though when I was in middle school, honestly, I wasn't really sticking to any sort of historical accuracy whatsoever, so there were a lot of inconsistencies based on, like, what would have actually happened in the Victorian era. So, this is supposed to look like the Victorian era and is tentatively set in the Victorian era, but has very little basis in actual reality. That said, let's get into it. So, the character that you are seeing me draw right now is the main character, and that is Sarah. At one point, I call her, like, her layer, I call her Amelia for some reason. I don't know why I did that, but her name is Sarah. So, Sarah is the eldest daughter in a family of 4, and her mother hates her because the truth that very, very few people know, is that Sarah is not actually her daughter. Sarah was the child of an affair that her father took her in and raised her as though she was his legitimate child, with the hopes that someday she would secure a good marriage and she'd be out of their house, so that they would never know, so that the people would never know of the dishonor that his affair had brought upon them. And so that was sort of the whole plan. As such, Sarah's mother really treats her kind of like crap. She's very strict and very harsh and very critical of everything that Sarah does, and she likes to kind of just abuse her mentally and emotionally and push her to impossible goals for the sake of kind of getting back at her husband for his affair by hurting the child. She's a very petty woman, so she's not really a great character. Meanwhile, Sarah's father does care about the girl. He's just not very good at showing it. He's just sort of absent. And the same can be said for Sarah's little sister, her half-sister, who is just absolutely adorable and the sweetest little thing. I believe her name was Anna. Anna is just the most caring and sweet little girl. She's maybe 12 years old, and she just thinks that her sister is the best thing ever in the world. Sarah, though, from a very young age, learned that she was just never going to be accepted by her family. She did find acceptance, however, with a boy whose family had been dishonored after his mother had killed herself. The family was looked upon very poorly and seen as sort of unsuitable. So even though the family was wealthy, no one really cared to come near them because they thought that they were haunted or that they were in some way damaged as a family because of what happened. And her son, this boy across the street, his name is Connor. So that is the other character in this drawing. So Connor and Sarah are both very wealthy and privileged, but at the same time quite ostracized from the world. Sarah, because her stepmother is very critical and harsh and forces her to be antisocial, and Connor, because his mother's reputation has kind of ruined their family, in a sense. So the two kind of bond over their mutually sad lives for a long time, and when it comes time for Sarah to be married off, she finds herself engaged to a man she doesn't really know or even like. So, in her kind of final act of rebellion before she's married off, She and Connor sneak off into the woods to just sort of hang out and spend their last couple of hours together before she has to be sent off. Well, they're out in the woods and kind of stalling as long as they can, and before long, night has fallen, and everything has been covered in shadows. The moon is out and bright and full, and that's pretty much the only reason they can see where they're going. Unfortunately, with the full moon comes the threat of something lurking in the shadows. They find this out very quickly when Connor and Sarah are both attacked by a creature that lunges out of the darkness. It's a dog or a wolf or something, but it's massive, whatever it is, and it attacks them both. It manages to bite Sarah on the leg before she manages to climb free, running as fast as she can while Connor is dragged into the darkness. He disappears, and Sarah barely makes it out of the woods before collapsing on the edge of the city, bleeding and in a lot of pain. When she awakens, she finds that her engagement has been broken off, and that she is very sick. She has a high fever and feels incredibly ill, and the bite on her leg is festering and infected already. Her sister takes care of her, and her father seeks to try and find the creature that attacked her. Her stepmother, on the other hand, is mostly just angry that she was out in the first place and that she is now not gone on a carriage with some strange man to be married off. Sarah is hurt and confused and incredibly distressed to learn that Connor was never found. He has been presumed dead. She's devastated to hear that her best friend, really her only friend, is dead. The only comfort she finds is in her sister, who takes care of her as best as she can. Sarah continues to get sicker and sicker as the month wears on, and eventually she starts to kind of stick to her room more than anything else. Then the next full moon comes. Sarah starts to have strange, demented dreams of a wolf. Becoming a wolf, these painful visions. She starts to feel things she's never felt before. These primal, violent urges that confuse and scare her. She doesn't tell anyone for fear of being ostracized or even killed, accused of witchcraft, any number of things. She's positive that her stepmother would find any and every excuse to get rid of her, including killing her. Sarah is unfortunately too late to come clean when, one night, she has a strange and horrifying dream. In the dream, she turns into a wolf at nightfall and attacks and kills her little sister. When Sarah wakes up, she finds herself in a cage, somewhere she's never been before. She's incredibly frightened. She doesn't understand where she is until her father comes to the cage and calls her a monster. She begs to know what's going on. She doesn't understand. And then it all clicks. The dreams haven't been dreams at all. She really did kill her sister, and she really is becoming a wolf when the moon comes out. The village plans to kill her, to get rid of her, by any means necessary. They are planning any way that they can, and hope to kill her before night falls. But things don't quite get off the ground the way that they want them to. People start resisting. They doubt that this meek-looking, terrified girl really could have ripped her sister to shreds. People are trying to be logical. There's no way there's a magical explanation. The fight goes on until, finally, the moon rises. She changes, and Sarah breaks free of her cage and runs off into the night. Sarah wakes up in the middle of the woods, miles and miles away from any landmark that looks familiar. Her clothes are missing, and her hair is covered in blood and twigs. She's confused and frightened and wanders, desperately finding something, anything to cover herself with. Finally, she stumbles across a carriage in the road that seems to just be waiting there. Out of the carriage steps a woman, beautiful but strange. The woman holds an umbrella over her head and comes over to Sarah, picks her up, wraps her cloak around her, brings her into the carriage without saying a word. Sarah has little choice but to follow. Inside, she learns that there are two people in this carriage, a man named Ambrose and a woman named Charlotte. Charlotte and Ambrose reveal themselves to be something of a supernatural power couple. They are both vampires. Sarah doesn't believe them at first. She believes that they're just yanking her chain or trying to scare her, or that they're both just deranged. At least until their faces change and they feed for the first time. They do this by taking vials of blood and injecting themselves with it. They say that it's the best way to get the blood where it needs to go. Feeding is so amateur, they say. Still, it's clear that they appreciate feeding, as Sarah catches them doing it later. Still, these people are her only hope, and the only people who don't seem afraid of her. She's afraid of herself. When night falls, they lock her up, and she doesn't manage to break free. They bring her to a large mansion where she finds, much to her delight, that her best friend, Connor, has survived. He's been living with the couple for many months, and, in a vision, saw Sarah running through the woods and told them where to find her. On a hunch, they followed his instructions, and, sure enough, there she was. So they brought them together. Sarah is more than a little relieved to see that Connor is alive, and more than a little disturbed to learn that he himself has been changing as well. They're starting to have strange visions, nightmares or dreams, whatever you'd like to call them. They can't quite figure out what it is, but something is telling them that they have to leave, and that they have to keep going, that there's somewhere else they need to be. So they try to leave. But their vampire companions, if you can call them that, don't want them to leave. They don't want them to ever leave. They've become a little sick on power. After all, while feeding on Sarah and Connor weakens the wolf and makes it easier for them to contain themselves at night, it deeply empowers the vampire couple. It gives them a sort of manic strength. They're high on what's left of the blood, and they are not willing to give up their supply. Sarah and Connor try to run. They choose daylight and just run out into the field, hoping that Charlotte and Ambrose won't be able to follow them. Of course, Charlotte and Ambrose can follow them. That is, until Connor rips away Ambrose's protection, and the sun hits his face and sets him aflame. Ambrose screams and desperately tries to cover himself again, but ends up burning up in the sunlight. Charlotte, distraught, lets down her guard long enough for Sarah to push her into the sunlight herself, throw away her parasol, and leave them both to burn. It's admittedly kind of a tragic and horrible scene, but Sarah and Connor know that they don't have too much time to keep going before the moon rises again, and so they take one of the carriages and they ride. They go all the way to a city, which I think was originally supposed to be London, but honestly I'm not sure that works even a little. They make it to the city, and their visions draw them to a strange club. They find themselves surrounded by people they've never seen before. Tall, frightening men and a few women who explain to them that they are a pack of wolves, and that they have been seeking out anyone turned, sending out psychic messages to bring the turned to them, so that they may all join as one powerful pack and keep each other in check. Sarah and Connor are at first incredibly relieved. They finally have people who understand their affliction, and moreover, people who can help them learn to control and harness it. Sarah is more than a little happy to learn that the wolf can be controlled, that you don't have to hurt people. You can harness the wolf. You'll never control it entirely, but it becomes something of a symbiotic relationship, a companionship with the wolf inside you. You can work with it and guide it and let it guide you. Over time, they start to train and practice, and eventually they find themselves at home in this new pack. That is, until another person shows up. They explain that they were attacked in the dark, at night, in the woods. It all sounds too familiar. Sarah and Connor are initially sort of wary, but they try to shrug off their concerns. I mean, it can't be that impossible for a werewolf to bite someone in the woods more than once, right? There are lots of woods. It could happen to anybody. But something just doesn't feel right. Something feels decidedly wrong. Sarah decides that she's going to do some digging. If she doesn't find anything, then all of her fears will have been for nothing, and she can feel confident in her pack. But if there is something, she needs to know. Much to her devastation, her fears are confirmed. The leaders of the pack, the alphas, they've been turning people on purpose with the intention of growing their pack. They saw Sarah and Connor in the woods and decided to turn them on purpose and then leave them. They left them to either turn, die, or kill someone. They left them to become so desperate that they would join a pack at the first chance they got. They turned them on purpose with the express purpose of growing their own numbers, creating their own subservient army. Sarah and Connor are devastated. They're absolutely gutted, but they also don't know who's in on it. And so they decide one day that what they're going to do is they're going to challenge the alpha. They're going to challenge him, and whoever can beat him will become the new alpha. Will be able to figure out who is guilty of this maniacal scheme and who is just innocent. The fight is brutal and intense. Connor ends up coming out on top and becomes the new alpha, with Sarah at his side. Sarah and Connor decide that they are going to build their pack with the remainder of the innocents, and they will find anyone who's been turned against their will, and they will teach them how to control themselves and go back into normal life, to be as happy and normal as possible. So yeah, that's the story, guys. I know I did stutter a couple of times, but overall, I hope that you enjoyed it. I miss this story. I miss all of the crazy of this story, and I don't know, I just kind of think that these characters are a lot of fun. I might draw Ambrose and Charlotte because they also have very striking designs. I think that they're a lot of fun. They have this very gothic Victorian look about them, and Charlotte is just so much fun. Charlotte is completely insane. She's kind of the crazy, seductive villainess that you hear about in sort of stereotypical female villainess modes, but she's very much so off her rocker, and I enjoy her a lot. And Ambrose is just, he's very much your stereotypical Dracula style character, but I enjoy him anyway. So yeah, that was the story. I actually called it Moonlight, so that was Moonlight. I might do more of my retired characters in the future, because it's a lot of fun to go back and revisit some of my old plot lines and stories and characters, because even though I might not be writing them anymore or drawing them anymore, I still really miss some of my old characters. So if that's something that you want to see more of, let me know. I'm going to be trying to keep as many videos up as I possibly can. But you never know how it goes with life. So hopefully I will not miss any weeks. And let me know what you want to see in the comments down below. I'm going to be doing more character introductions. But I also want to do some more non-character related stuff. Just some general art stuff. Because I feel like I've been doing a lot of character stuff lately. So I might do some art challenges and see how that goes. So let me know what you want in the comments down below, and make sure that you follow me on Instagram because I have been posting a lot of polls there, and if I need any feedback on what I should post next, I usually post an Instagram poll, so in my Instagram stories. So make sure that you go ahead and follow me on Instagram or on Twitter. I'm trying to use Twitter more. I know I should use it more, but follow me there if you want to have input on what I post next. Hope that you have a good morning, evening, afternoon, nighttime, time of day, and I will catch you guys in the next video. If you're subscribed, which you should be, you should also hit that little notification bell because it lets you know when I post my new videos, and who doesn't want to know that? Alright, so that said, I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye-bye!